All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm an associated member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker dealer and member of FINRA SIPC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. My position disclosure remains the same. AMD's running after hours? A little bit. A couple bucks. It's already up 20. What's an extra 2? Are they running the other semis or just that? NVIDIA's up 30 cents, 40 cents after hours here.
I got you.
All right, let's do it. So SPY's finished up 0.5%. They're actually, it's less than that. They're up more here after hours. So SPY's 0.5%, including the after hours action. The Qs are up 0.8%. They're higher with AMD though as well. So again, it was less than that. The IWM up a percentage point. So yeah, I mean, another decent up day. Another decent up day, but like not enough to trigger any of that realized volatility selling. The SPYs are up a percentage point plus for a good portion of the day early on. And it's like, oh, that's interesting because at these prices, you probably, will get some selling from that realized vol community we had seen with our model, like $7 billion worth of selling. And the question was, especially after we gapped and went so early, can the systematic selling that would probably come in at a percent plus up outweigh the retail buying that is literally never ending? And Scott Rubner's out with a new note over at Citadel. I'm not sure if you guys saw it yet, but he just basically is going over kind of what we already know, which is that the retail buying is incredible. The call buying from the retail community on Friday of last week into the down move was the strongest it's ever been, which we already knew. But it just, the retail bid is not pulling back. It's not turning into selling into down moves. It's not stopping, and you can still see that when you look at like RGTI, which is obviously a retail darling with how it closed today. But that's been the consistent question that I've been asking myself every day this week is what's going to be stronger here? The never-ending retail buying, which has also been coupled with some institutional buying. The institutions had a pretty big bid last week. Or the degree of vol control that we're seeing. And that vol control selling is going to end at some point. Probably now, unless we see a pickup in realized volatility again, because we had 2 bigger days, right? We had the big down day. I forget what that was, like 2.6% or so on the Friday down, and then on the Monday we had like a 1.5% up. But yesterday was pretty flattish, and today was pretty flattish as well. So it's not enough to actually really trigger anything from that community. And like I keep discussing, we never were really able to trigger any major selling from the CTAs. We got right down to the levels and never actually really broke them to trigger them. So you just don't really, as big as Friday was, it still was not enough to actually trigger anything. And it's in the face of the most unrelenting retail bid I have ever seen. Retail has been buying calls per the Rubner note, I forget how many weeks in a row, but it's a record. Their net call buying week over week over week is a record. It's been completely unstoppable. There's some chatter that a lot of that's actually coming from Korea, from Korean citizens getting involved in trading U.S. equities. I don't know, but it's an animal that I've never seen before. With all that said, when you look at the daily candle of the SPYs and the Qs, it's still, I would say, slightly inconclusive. Let's circle back to Monday real quick. So Monday we had a little bit of a tighter inside day after Friday's extreme selling. What I've basically been saying since Monday is how we break the inside day probably dictates the path going forward. Get an inside and down, you can potentially retest Friday's low, you can potentially trigger some of that systematic selling and get a much larger sell. Get the inside and up, and you're probably working your way back towards highs. The IWM is without a doubt given the inside and up. That was the leader. It was the leader yesterday. It was incredible. But the SPYs and the Qs, they didn't do that. Yesterday we gapped down, but gapping above or below the inside day is not enough to confirm it. You need to gap and hold above or below that inside day. So yesterday we gapped below it, but we bought up all day. The market got bought up all day and closed right back in the range. So we didn't have any new clarity. Today we had a really big gap up. The gap up gave continuation in the beginning of the day, but then it got a bit heavy and rolled over after this kind of initial pop. And at the end of the day, we more or less still closed within the range of those last couple trading sessions, and there's an upside tail and a downside tail on today's candle, so it's a doji day. So the SPYs and the Qs honestly still are not really giving us too much versus Monday's trading session. Gapping below and closing within, gapping above and closing basically right at those highs from the last couple of days. So it's still not enough, I don't think, for me to have conviction on which way the next leg is. But without that conviction, you should just assume higher, because the trend is higher, the IWM is higher. So, the Qs and the SPYs maybe are giving you a little bit of a mixed signal, but the IWM's certainly not giving you a mixed signal. The RSP ticked above the Friday high, but didn't hold above. So, net, this is definitely more bullish than bearish. But you do still have some degree of uncertainty with the SPYs and Qs. They haven't fully confirmed it yet. Most likely they'll have it fully confirmed by tomorrow to the upside. But we'll see. So that is at the index level. I don't really have anything new to add. Just outside of the fact that, this bid is just so impressive. We were able to get a pretty big roll down during the day today to get this market negative very briefly. That roll, and we're getting big intraday ranges. Yesterday and today, the realized vol where we closed is not a huge amount, but the intraday move here, look at this. SPYs given this high of above 670 to then pulling all the way down to 659 and doing that just in a few hours. That's very, very different than the price action that we had been seeing pretty much the entire way up, where we never had big movements. We were consistently closing flat almost every single day. These last couple of days we closed, still within 0.5% down, 0.5% up, but big ranges intraday. So we'll see if we get more clarity at the end of tomorrow's trading session, because I still don't feel we have full clarity for bulls versus bears. But every day it's AI, right? Look at AMD today. AMD just remarkable. How did AVGO end up doing? Not as good. But AMD just completely remarkable. We had OpenAI headlines out this morning. More AI deals. This Oracle still can't really go either. And then you get the flip side of that is the NVIDIA weakness. But this NVIDIA, once again, even though it got below 180, still couldn't close below 180. So the NVIDIA weakness, I think, is extremely notable if the market could ever go down. But like we've been half joking in the VTF, people are just selling the largest market cap stock to be able to buy everything else. So that kind of covers that. As far as individual stocks go, look, I think the RGTI UUUU combination, which I think was like the big short focus for us as a team today, as far as our trade setup, looking for the RDR in both of those. These things worked pretty well, but it still wasn't right. I was saying it the whole way down on RGTI, even when it was able to be weak, and Quad U, even when it was able to be weak. It just wasn't that heavy volume puking that I really want to see when you get that down 20% negative Maribozu engulfing candle. And in fact, even at lows with RGTI, it never even broke yesterday's low. It didn't even begin to attempt to engulf anything. You still can't even get these things, even with as much as it was down during the day today, 10% plus. Stock is circuit broken. This stock is now circuit broken, which is annoying, right? Stock is circuit broken, but it's at all-time highs. It still hasn't had a down day. You still can't even get the thing to touch the 80 MA on the daily. Still, even here, couldn't get all the way down to the 80 MA on the daily, and unfortunately, for me, in both RGTI and Quad U, I'm kind of gauged towards this ADMA on the daily, where I had some bigger bids in front of them that never got filled. I know Pat definitely, sounds like he was more patient than me on the short and executed better on the covering. I know he got some big covers near lows, but I was just a little bit lower on some big covers for RGTI and Quad U that I didn't quite get. And then, you still got this incredible turnaround in these names along with the market as a whole. QBTS seems like it was the real leader on these quantum stocks today, and still managed to close green. QBTS up 3.5%. IonQ, however, much heavier. Maybe that's a result of the IonQ secondary offering that came out that few trading sessions ago, adding on a little bit of weight to this stock. But IonQ really did not bounce back. It still managed to close down 6%, even with QBTS up, and RGTI closed like flat green, I think, on the day. So that was a big focus intraday. How that XME? Yeah, this XME is another one that I'm starting to like on the short side. I don't know if anybody took it. I didn't. Just too much on my plate. But XME short versus that opening high, I like with where the daily chart is. I think that we can be looking at gold and silver and maybe GDX and XME to start giving some pullbacks now. XME is actually the only one in that complex that actually did do that. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I got. I don't really have anything new from the bigger picture. It just continues to be this battle of, do we get above the high from last Friday? Do we get below the low of last Friday? Can we get any conviction from this market on a solid close above or below Monday's high or low? And we still don't really, I think, have that full clarity, but it's most definitely more bullish than bearish. So yeah, that's all I got. Not too much on my end from today, but I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has or review anything that you guys are looking at. LEU for Russian oil headlines. Okay, doesn't seem like this name is moving too much on whatever it is. Are these true topping tails or inverted hammers? I assume you're asking about like an RGTI. I struggle to interpret that type of candle in like an RGTI, because I think it can be read in two ways.
So
one way that you could read this type of candle is like, some people might describe this as like a hanging man doji, where you're seeing that sellers are coming in, but you're seeing that sellers are coming in, sellers are present, so this thing could be signifying that a change is coming soon. But I've never liked that concept of like a hanging man doji in a stock that's moving higher where you get a downside tail, because the way that I've always viewed it is, who is in control at the end of the day? Well, who is in control at the end of the day is buyers, and that's why that big tail exists, because this thing closed very well off its lows, and when buyers are able to close the stock in control, there's a good chance that they're able to give further follow through on that the next day. So I could see you making an argument in both ways. It's like a hanging man type of doji. I guess it's technically an inside day with RGTI, but it's like a hanging man doji at these highs. Sellers are starting to represent themselves. They're going to overwhelm these buyers soon, and you get a much larger pullback to $40 in this thing. Or, hey, buyers came in, they're unstoppable, they saved the day again, they closed this thing all the way back up, and we're getting set up for the next leg. I could really see the argument on both sides, but know your levels. Like 58 is pretty important on the upside, and basically the lows of the last 2 days on the downside. If you could break today and yesterday's low tomorrow, basically if you could break $50 in the next couple of days without this thing getting above 58, that's probably your signal that you're actually getting a much larger pullback. And I think it goes back to what Pat was saying into the close a little bit about how, like, you can chase a little bit to the downside. I actually think if this thing really shows that it's breaking 50, that's not something that you need to look at the stock and be like, oh, but it came all the way from 58 all the way down to 50, I can't short it now. Well, you can short it now if you can find a stop loss that's not the high of the daily chart, because you could easily get a move back to 40 in this thing, I think, if it breaks 50. So you could still have a really good risk reward on the downside while shorting it on the way down. So Tom Sosnoff, whoever that is. So I don't know if you guys want to quit my meeting, but you can, I guess. So that is our GTI, the daily candle, kind of some information on it. Car for $500. What? I don't see anything of interest in car or what this chart looks like. LEU is uranium. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be moving. PWR for Matthew. I'm not sure if there's a question there on this or not, or if you just want me to analyze the chart. First thing I would say is I would never trade this stock. $440 stock that does under 1 million shares a day is just not enough liquidity for me. Way too wide of spreads. You're probably going to be subject to a boatload of slippage if you're trading this thing and you're utilizing stop losses. So this is not within the profile of a stock that I would ever want to trade. If you want me to just analyze the daily technicals, they look good. Above 440, this thing looks great for continuation, but I just don't think that this is the type of trading vehicle that you want to be involved in. I'm looking at my 5-minute chart on the other screen, and there's gaps in it. It means that sometimes this thing will go an entire 5 minutes without trading, or it will gap up and down just through spreads on a 5-minute chart. Not something I have an interest in trading. Don't recommend it. I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. Email trade desk. From Dennis, what's up with the shutdown? When is that going to affect the market, if at all? We open equals bullish or potential sell the news, depending on the technicals. So, government shutdown has obviously had zero impact on the stock market so far. We had read some research reports when the shutdown was first starting, that if the shutdown lasts more than 2 weeks, it could begin to impact the stock market. With that said, I had also read a different one that that says you probably have to get to like a month before it starts to impact the stock market. So we're past that 2-week point right now. The market's not moving on those Trump headlines, is it? Not really. Yeah, not really. Trump says we're in a trade war with China. Thanks, Captain Obvious. What was I just talking about? I lost my train of thought. The government shutdown. So, we're at the point where it could begin to impact the stock market, but again, very obviously it hasn't. Though I do still think if the shutdown ends because a deal happens, the market moves up on that. Because if that happens, the VIX is going to go down. And if the VIX goes down, it causes the market to go up. It makes like a Vegas squeeze on the market as people are just unwinding those hedges. So, I think that the risk is to the upside when it comes to the shutdown, to be honest. Though everything we see makes it look like we're nowhere close to getting a deal done. But I think I read something that the Democrats, if their whole goal is for the Affordable Care Act to be able to continue, that they need the Republicans to agree to it by November 1st. So maybe you start to see some give or take as we get closer to the end of October. But I don't know. We'll see. From Liam, any thoughts on BMNR? Yeah, this name keeps getting brought up. I've never been excited by it. It's kind of in a wedge or a little bit of an upside grind. It's testing the lower end of that band. I think if this stock loses 50, it's kind of shot. And if it gets above 65, then it looks great. In between 50 and 65, it's pretty much range bound. And the biggest bear case I could make about this thing is that it hasn't gone. You're telling me it's a retail darling. Retail is buying everything hand over foot and moving stock, and this thing can't go. So I would honestly argue at this point that that's bearish. If retail's been that into this name and it can't go, there's something wrong with it, because retail is moving the entirety of the stock market right now. So below 50, I think this thing looks shot, and what you're saying to me makes me want to short it more than buy it. So potential short in BMNR below 50. Gets above 65, it'll look good. To keep issuing debt to buy Ethereum while it's around 4K. Yeah, I mean similar to I guess what MSTR does on their end. IBIT's getting hit on what? Not really. A little bit, I guess. Yeah, Bitcoin getting hit a little bit. Just pulled back 35 cents. The IBIT ETF. It's my opinion on the VIX up here. It's incredible to me that the VIX has been able to stay as elevated as it has, honestly. I keep expecting this to crunch back down, and even today at lows, it's like getting down to 1950. It's not really leaving that $20 area. So I don't know. I would honestly either expect this to be lower or the market to be lower if this was going to sustain above 20. Like if you told me after Friday that the IWM was going to make all-time highs within 2 days, if the VIX was going to basically be staying above 20, I'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. And obviously the VIX is more based on the SPY than the IWM, or a little more correlated to the SPY than the IWM. But let me read the rest of what you're saying. Besides the last few days, we closed above VIX 20 August 1st, a few days between June 13th and 19th, May 23rd. All were pretty good market buy points. I'm struggling to determine which direction I want to trade this market in overall. I wouldn't necessarily look at those other points as something that has to fulfill itself again in the future at these levels. And I don't know for sure. I know for sure that if you get a VIX spike to 50 plus, that's a very, very much of a signal to go the other way on everything. And it's very, very consistent. I think when you get a spike to 20 like this, I'm guessing, but if you did a historical look back, I would bet that you don't have good overall results on higher versus lower for the market. Even if the last couple times, like you're mentioning here, it's created a good pivot low for the market, a market buy point. So I don't know. I do know that 25 is huge on the upside if it could ever be breached. So if we can get, I don't know, some sort of an event, right? We're always looking for an event, and we had a little bit of an event on Friday, but it still wasn't enough. If we could get some sort of an event that gets this VIX above 25 and gets this market down to Friday's low at the same time, that's when the fireworks go off. But otherwise, I don't have conviction here. I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying with the SPYs and the Qs when I look at the daily chart. I don't have conviction, but it seems more bullish than bearish. And maybe I would say the same thing about the VIX here. I don't have conviction necessarily that this is going to be back to 15 before it gets back to 25. But it's probably lower with the market higher than the VIX higher with the market lower at this point based on everything we're seeing. But I say that without really strong conviction. So hope that helps. Probably doesn't help too much, but I guess your struggle in determining direction is the same struggle that I'm having to determine direction, and we might just need to wait for more evidence. And if you don't have strong conviction, cash is a position, and sitting on your hands is a good thing to do sometimes. So Ford's doing the same thing with SOL. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing these crypto treasury companies come out every day. So I don't know. The market still is giving the new ones a benefit of the doubt, but I'm not a fan as we see more and more of them come into play. All right, anything else, guys? I'm not seeing any commentary on the YouTube today. So, what's so funny, Josh?
Guy, man. What the fuck?
Please don't curse when I'm on
sorry.
BTF.
Like, come on.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up there then. Have a great night, everybody. Short meeting today. I'll see you all tomorrow.